Are you sick of Smashy Bros? Does Steve piss you off? Tired of waiting for Rivals 2 to eventually come out? Sad that Nazba 2 has no player base? Poor little thing never got off the ground, but I like him. I think he's fun. Do you just want to attack someone? Hey, oh, hey, oh, hey. Let's dial it back. Everyone and their grandma enjoys a platform fighter from time to time. Whether it's Smash, Rivals, Nazba, or anything beyond them, they're just straight up plain fun, casually or competitively. Did I grow up with any of those, though? No, they weren't on PlayStation, Game Boy, or DS. I'm not playing Melee, I'm not a freak. I grew up with real multiplayer games. Time Splitters 2, Cell Damage Overdrive, War of the Monsters, Spy vs. Spy, Pokemon Fire Red and Diamond, Yu-Gi-Oh! Just the card game mainly, but we did like Tag Force 2 and Spirit Caller as well. Crash Bash. Yeah, when I was a Ben, I had mates. Our first exposure to the major leagues of platform fighters wouldn't come until Brawl came out back in 2008. So for the first 10 years of our lives, what did we use to fill our quota for jumping about and attacking marketable creatures and characters?
We're Digimon! Digital monsters!
Digital monsters?
Yes, Digimon!
I first learned about Digimon when a friend of mine in primary school, I think we were in like year 2, came into school one day talking about it. I'd never heard of it before, so I decided to just nod along, and eventually, when in a shopping trip to Morrison's, I found a DVD containing the first 6 episodes of the series, and that was it for me. I was hooked. The series burrowed its way into my brain and has yet to leave. Yeah, I'm still there. Digimon started life as a virtual pet, or V-Pet. Bandai saw the success of Tamagotchi amongst particularly young girls and thought, hey, how do we get the boys on board? Eventually, they settled on swapping out the little fella from the Tamagotchis with something for boys to really get into. Giant monsters most foul, dinosaurs, dragons, devils, piles of goo, a big teddy bear. For the little boys. This seemingly worked, and to further promote the V-Pets, a 13-episode anime series was commissioned after the initial success of an OVA, which is actually the first third of the English-dubbed Digimon the movie. It's simply titled Digimon Adventure overseas. The series would share the same name as it over in Japan, and would go on to become so popular that it was turned into a full 50-episode series, which, fun fact, is my favourite anime of all time. The success of this initial run, alongside the V-Pets, meant the creation of many a follow-up, including action figures, and transforming action figures, and action figures on skateboards, and action figures with cool actions that they can do, and plushies, and model kits, and trading cards, and pencil cases, and stickers, and more V-Pets, and statues, and games! They bloody made games! They made video games out of this! Unless you owned a WonderSwan back in the UK in 1999, which is something I either A, doubt happened, or B, you wouldn't be really that willing to admit if you grew up in the 2000s. I mean, what is a WonderSwan anyway? A mint bird? First Digimon game you likely got your hands on was Digimon World, a weirdo game for freaks which takes heavy influence from the V-Pets, despite having the adventure characters on the box. It has many mechanics and is something I actually plan to revisit at some point as an adult to give a proper shakeout, though if you're curious, Wayne as Boss did a really mint breakdown of it and its sequel a little while back. A big recommend after you're done here. I wouldn't come to give that game a go until I had the internet and managed to find it online on eBay, which was at the earliest like 2006, maybe 2007. This meant that the first Digimon games I experienced were Digimon Rumble Arena 1 and 2, on the PS1 and 2 respectively. As the brainworm was just beginning to fester up top, I played the former at a friend's house and absolutely loved it. And this meant that one day when I was on a trip to Game to buy Sly 2 after I'd loved it when renting it from Blockbuster, I was absolutely shocked to find the sequel sat right there next to Sly in the PS2 section. I then proceeded to have some outward turmoil because I only had enough pocket money to buy one of them, and after some deliberation and taking Sly 2 up to the counter, I turned round to see my dad stood behind me after encouraging me to go and transact Sly myself, holding Digimon Rumble Arena 2 to get me as a treat for doing well that year in school. The Rumble Arena games became a Sunday afternoon tradition for me and my dad, always playing them and other stuff like Spy vs. Spy and the shuffleboard minigame on Madagascar after we'd had our dinner. So today I thought, hey, my brain's pretty Digimon oriented at the moment, I want to talk about Digimon, and like everyone in my real life, you're all going to sit there and listen politely while I waffle about 2 games from 20 years ago that I really liked. Aren't you? We'll talk about the older of the two first. We get some nice comparisons going for later on, you know. Digimon Rumble Arena 1 was released on PS1 in Europe in July of 2002, and opens up with this absolutely mint movie showcasing the cast, blending 2D animation from the series for the human characters with some charming 3D for the Digimon as they launch into some cross-series clashes. It feels really cool to see the different Digimon from across the first 3 iterations of the show having a go at each other. I especially think the Gatomon and Renamon bit looks really cool. Just this transition between Renamon hitting into the debris, into her launching herself off to hit Diamond Storm, it's just really, really cool. It also gets some pretty neat character interaction from the series there as well, while also showing a wider part of the cast off, like when Guilmon batters Vmon, so Stingmon has to rock up and help him, meaning that Imperial Dramon can make an appearance because both of them are there to DNA Digivolve and then fight Gallantmon. Omnimon and Blackwall Greymon having a go each other is especially cool because Blackwall Greymon always wanted stronger and stronger opponents in the series, and having these two face off is the coolest possible clash for the adventure timeline at the time of this game's release, and shows off that these two fan favourites are going to be playable in this really exciting sequence. All of it culminating with the appearance of this menacing new Digimon, having a music track which rises and matches the action well, and a shot of the 3 goggle heads and the wider cast ending things off means that by the end, you are ready to scrap with these digital freaks.
Digimon Rumble Arena!
We're then greeted with the title screen and the dulcet tones of Guilmon. I absolutely love the background of this title screen, and the build up to the logo reveal. It just feels like pure early Digimon with all those changing colours and the wireframes. It's absolutely great. One thing I totally love about this game is the sound design. Yeah, the soundtrack itself is really nice, some varied tracks here and there, a lot of guitar and digital sounds to match the action too. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but it took me till writing this video to realise that the theme of the final boss of the campaign is The Biggest Dreamer, the Japanese intro theme from Tamers. I love how it's the choice there, it absolutely bangs. Beyond the soundtrack though, I just love how this game sounds. Like, despite being a late PS1 game, it still has the crunchiest of crunchy PS1 sound compression for the sound effects, and mainly voice lines. Like, just give some of these a listen.
Digivolve, Terriermon!
Patamon, watch out!
Agumon, Digivolve!
Most of the original cast return, and the ones who don't quite sound the same still have an appropriate enough voice. I like how the Digimon have a couple of victory lines, and most having at least one specifically tied to shouting out their tamer, really selling the bond between them as a thing that's important to the Digimon, which is actually a key element of the series, so it's nice to see here.
Gatomon, are you hungry?
You win.
This is for Rika.
You win.
I also love how the announcer sounds. It's not like in Smash where he has this big, grand voice. It's, well, just take a listen.
I'm done. You win. You lose. Continue.
You know what I mean? Like, he's kind of timid, or like a human text-to-speech thing. I don't know, I think he sounds neat. I like him a lot. The sound effects for characters' movements, special attacks, basic hits, background elements, and menu sounds all just hit me the right way. I don't know if it's because it hits with the vibe of Digimon so perfectly with how the game sounds, or if it's a nostalgia thing because I grew up with this game and it's hitting something in me noggin, but regardless, it's perfect, beyond words, that a Digimon game sounds like this. The game also looks pretty nice too. All the characters are really on model and scale well with one another, despite being vastly different sizes within canon. Only one who looks a little bit off is Omnimon. That's mainly, I think, because of his lack of cape. I can understand why he doesn't have it here though. It probably would have been an absolute nightmare to work it in within this polygon count. The menus look nice and clean, as does the character select screen. Really nicely put together. I love the metallic steel border around the roster, the logo as the backdrop, teleprompter screen with some lovely traditional green digital text telling you to select Digimon, and the digicode either side completes the vibe. I don't know what it says, but I'm sure it's really lovely. while we're on it, let's have a proper look at the roster. Starting out, we've got a nice selection from the cast of the 3 series that were out at the time. 4 adventure reps with Agumon, Gabumon, Patamon and Gatomon, 4 reps from Adventure 02 with Wormmon and Vmon joining Patamon and Gatomon, who also appeared in that show, and 3 Tamers reps, the full cast from the start of that show, with Guilmon, Terriermon and Renamon. A nice beginning roster to be sure, which does well to equally, more or less, represent the 3 shows that were out at the time of the game's release. There's a canny few unfilled slots on this roster though, and we'll discuss them a little bit later on. But from the outset, the single player is pretty much just do as Calamon says. And after the partner of the Digimon you chose gives them a lovely bit of motivation,
Get ready, Gatomon!
you're off to the races. Like any traditional arcade mode, the single player takes you through a series of fights against the rest of the roster. Before you begin a given fight, though, you'll get a preview of who you've got coming through a loading screen, with a lovely personalised information card showing who you're going to be fighting, and telling you the names of their 2 special moves. If you've seen the show that they're from, you'll probably be able to surmise what it'll do, but if not, the name's all you've got to work with, like Pepper Breath, Claw Attack, Blue Blaster, Boom Bubble. I can get that! What the fuck is a Kohenkyo? It's after this loading screen and a brief little intro animation that you're into your first fight. Every Digimon controls roughly the same. Some have better ground speed than others, but everyone has basic attacks both grounded and in the air, can jump, grab, and has 2 special moves mapped to circle and triangle. The aim of the game is to batter your opponent into submission, no surprises there, using every skill you've got, but you'll probably find yourself using the Digimon's signature techniques the most. They do the most damage and have the most range after all, the trade-off being that the basic hits are quicker and the grabs do a tad more damage. As you damage your opponent though, you won't just be lowering their health, you'll also be building this blue meter at the bottom, and when it's full you press R1 and digivolve into a different form of your chosen Digimon, and many of them skip the champion and ultimate stages, going all the way to Mega, even for the likes of Patamon and Gatomon, whose Megas were only seen in the final portion of Digimon the movie, Digimon Hurricane Touchdown to give it its Japanese name, for like a minute of screen time maybe, if that. I think probably Magna Angemon and Angemon would have been better used here, power scaling be damned. The only exception to the Megas rule is Wormmon. Vmon gets Imperial Dramon Fighter Mode as his Digivolution, despite it being a DNA form that needs Wormmon to be involved. This means that Wormmon though is the only character who doesn't have a Mega, instead going to his champion form, Stingmon. Despite it being weird that he's the only one who does this, and there being options for a more powerful form than Stingmon on the table, I'm not gonna complain too much because, you know, it's Stingmon. He's a cool cat! Boss? And is more significant to the characters of Ken and Wormmon than any of the other options would have been, so I do understand why he was the choice. There's a few advantages of Digivolution. Different attacks which are bigger, stronger and more versatile than your rookie forms, a longer reach because of your extended body, and bigger damage on your basic attacks, as well as an ultimate attack for each Digimon based around a 3rd iconic signature move. I love a lot of these, and they do a really good job of feeling grander than your average special technique, announcing the attack as you do it and unleashing something far larger and more devastating than you normally could. Terraforce is an excellent example of this. The size of the attack, the leap into the air, the gravelly voice of War Greymon, it feels like a finishing move, and it really captures the aura that the move had in the show. Imperial Dramon's is downright insane as well. He just starts absolutely battering you before unleashing the Giga Crusher, or Megadeth to give it its Japanese name, which makes it that little bit more cool. As soon as you launch these bigger attacks, you'll revert to your rookie level, and you'll have to build it up all over again. And getting interrupted while unleashing your ultimate attack also reverts you immediately to your weaker form, so you gotta be a little careful when you unleash these massive strikes. That's not all though, you'll also be able to grab some power-ups from time to time. And this game borrows a lot from Tamers, with Calamon and Guilmon taking on part of the announcing, the Digivolution effect being the egg from that series, and the fact that the announcer says Digivolution when it happens is taken wholesale from Tamers. Another thing that's borrowed from Tamers is the fact that the cards are the game's power-ups. There's a couple of varieties, increasing your Digivolution gauge, decreasing it, launching a special fireball in 2 designer colours, and even these ones! I don't know what these ones do, but they're certainly still here. What's also neat is when the cards spawn, sometimes they'll appear face down, so you don't actually see what it is right away. You'll need to go and hit it with one of your basic attacks to reveal it, and if it's something you don't want or something that's actively going to make you weaker, you can actually try and hit the cards into your opponent to hand them that negative effect. Just gives these situational power-ups that little bit more variety in how you might use them. Between the cards, signature moves and digivolving, this means these one-on-one fights can be quite hectic, especially when you're taking into account quite a few of the stages have gimmicks, like rolling boulders in the jungle ruins, freezing and burning in the ice and lava stages, the former also having ice physics, opening floors with steep conveyor belts in the factory, and the entire stage being made up of smaller destructible platforms in Sky Sanctuary? One of them is just straight up the inside of a Digivice too, which at set intervals will stop your fight to completely rotate the stage, so you have to just stop to adjust your new positioning while trying to keep on top of your opponent. The stage gimmick is a little intrusive at times, but I just like the idea of fighting inside a Digivice. Fighting isn't all you're going to be doing in the arcade mode though, as the frantic fun of battering your fellow freaks has broken up every third fight with a minigame. These are pretty basic, there's only 3 variants, those being hit the thing until the meter is full, charge balls and launch them to collect gems and stars, and basketball. Oh, sorry, a ball game. They're fine, I guess, and break things up decently well. I'd still probably just cut them and have the campaign just continue undeterred. Minigames won't be the only thing interrupting your battles though. As you get closer to that final fight, the penultimate fight can sometimes be interrupted by none other than Blackwall Greymon. This is really cool when it first happens. You think you're loading into a fight with like Vmon or Renamon or something, and then the man says rumble and you throw your first punch, and then the screen gets lit up with the words, "Here comes a new challenger," and boom, you're fighting against an opponent who has no rookie form, meaning you're going to have to bring your A game. Blackwall Greymon being an optional encounter is so cool. Him spending his time in O2 looking for stronger and stronger opponents to fill a void in his soul means that him just showing up only if you're doing well enough to not lose a single round in your run just fits him so perfectly. He's very tough at being a perpetual mega and all, but if you manage to beat him, you do unlock him in the character select, which is also true for the next and final fight too. Reapermon, the shadowy Digimon from the opening movie, is your final boss here, and let me tell you, he's a rough customer, a tough cookie, a prick. Oh, that's horrible, I'm sorry. What makes Reapermon so tough are his 2 signature moves, Bone Duster and Grim Slasher. The former, he simply walks up to you and tries to light you on fire, which does loads of hits and pressures your block like nothing else in the game. This is also true for Grim Slasher, except there, he's also moving while attacking, sliding towards you as he goes, so it's even more difficult to avoid, and at times, he might just cross you up. He's another Digimon who's able to maintain his Mega State for the entire fight, so even after he uses his Ultra move, he's going to stay how he is. This guy is a suitably hard end to the arcade if you don't know how to use your block effectively and aren't ready for his plentiful multi-hits, and this meant, as a kid, I got stuck on him routinely because who has time to block A? Only losers and Nimrods. Getting stuck on him quite a bit though when I was younger meant that I got to spend a lot of time on his stage and hearing the music that comes with it, and let me tell you, I love both. As I said earlier, the fact that the music is a remix of The Biggest Dreamer, the opening from Tamers composed by the legendary Wada Koji, and may he rest in peace, is so very sick. The guitar in the track is perfect for getting you in the mood for a big climactic fight, and pairs beautifully with the arena the fight takes place in. The level bears some decent resemblance to the Digimon representation of the internet, with the occasional Kuromon strip even floating by. This is where the climax of the Digimon movie's second portion, our war game, it takes place, and paying homage to it here means that the fight feels super climactic. What also helps is the insane visual effects applied exclusively for this stage. I love this After Effects stuff they've got going on here. I could see it being a bit visually distracting to some, maybe even giving you a spot of motion sickness, but to have it be exclusive to this final stage makes it feel all the more special, and like with the sound design, it just screams early 2000s and classic Digimon. I absolutely love it. When you do eventually overcome Reapermon, you're great with the credits and are rewarded with unlocking him for arcade mode and multiplayer mode, alongside having direct access to play exclusively as the Digivolve form of whatever Digimon you beat the story with. You also, if you got lots of lovely points, get yourself on the leaderboard, which is chock full of scores set by the Digidestined, though not always with the correct Digimon. You're not done though. You've got to play through the campaign as everyone to make sure you unlock every character, and there's even 3 secret characters for you to grab too. And one of them you already know from the opening cinematic, Omnimon, who's only unlocked after you beat the game as both Agumon and Gabumon. Pretty nice considering his nature as a DNA form of their megas, and whose sheer aura from our war game has never been recaptured in his subsequent appearances. The second of the 3 characters is unlocked by beating the campaign as both Wormmon and Vmon. Their DNA Digivolution, Imperial Dramon, was explicitly given to Vmon as his mega. By finishing both of their arcade modes, you unlock Imperial Dramon Paladin mode, the form Imperial Dramon took in the 4th Digimon movie, Revenge of Diaboromon, by wielding the Omni Sword which Agumon and Gabumon had to create by reverting back from Omnimon. It's really neat to see this form playable, and he even gets his own variation of Imperial Dramon's Ultra, using the Omega Sword, which, to be a complete loser for a moment, is actually an amalgamation of the 2 names for the move, the Japanese Omega Blade and the English dub's Omni Sword. The third and final secret character is your reward for beating the game with all 3 of the Tamers characters, and of course, it's Impmon. There's no more fitting 4th Tamers rep than Impmon, and unlike the rest of the unlockable characters, he's a rookie Digimon. This means that by beating the campaign as Impmon gives you the final unlockable character, Beelzemon. And there's no final note to finish these unlockable characters on. They are all really neat to see in the game, and Impmon and Beelzemon being the most complex to unlock just makes them feel that more special. If you want, you could use cheat codes to unlock a couple of megas from the outset, but Impmon and Omnimon can't be gotten in this way, meaning you've got to get them how God intended, playing the game and defeating your enemies. For all I've talked about how I think this game is really, really cool and how it embodies the spirit of the first 3 Digimon anime really well, I do have a couple of gripes with it. Fights do tend to just devolve into mashing your signature moves at your opponent until you can Digivolve, at which point you begin to run away to get distance because of your moves likely having now more range, and then rinse and repeat. The difficulty spike between the final regular fight and Reapermon is also quite steep, and for first time players it is a big ask and adjustment to make. Renamon, despite being a rookie level Digimon, is horrendously powerful, which I suppose is in line with the start of Tamers, or at least from what I've seen from it, but my lord, she isn't okay. You'll see footage here of me just annihilating Black War Greymon with her special techniques, and in the run I did, especially off camera, to unlock Black War Greymon by not losing a single game, I managed to perfect him twice because of how strong Renamon is. While I joked about it earlier, one of her special moves, Kohenkyo, is downright broken. It is an unblockable technique that, while it does no damage, switches your position with your opponent. So I'm sat there like, oh, what if I just took high ground and then just pelted him with the other technique, Diamond Storm, which is a multi-hit which, even if you get hit while doing it, the diamonds you've already summoned will still attack your opponent, leading ample opportunity for you to do Renamon's grab, which sends them back an enormous distance and means that you can just go back to looping him with Diamond Storm. Of course, there's also then her Digivolve form, Sakuyamon. While you've got a few different techniques throughout the game that have special properties, like Seraphimon ultimate, for example, being started up by a single hit, or Mega Gargomon having a command grab, which is unique to him, Sakuyamon has an especially egregious special aspect to one of her moves. With her dragon thing that she does, I forget its name, she is able to hold the attack button to control the dragon. So when I was little, I always thought they homed in, but no, the computer just controlled them, and you can get insane combos with them. Like, again, in the off-screen run that I did, I got a 25 hit combo just plowing every one of these, again, dragons, I always think they look more like horses, into my opponent, and it's absolutely not fair. And then you've got Fox Drive, which is just this giant ball that's bigger. I looked at it, it's bigger than Wargreymon's Terraforce in this game, and it's just a standard move that Sakuyamon just has. And Lastly, we come to her ultimate Paladin Sphere, which is a two-part move. The first part will stun you if you get caught within the radius of this circle, and you know that's fair enough, it leads into the move, but then it lets off this ginormous multi-hit explosion which can annihilate your health bar, and again, like Diamond Storm, has the really unique property of even if you hit Sakuyamon out of the move, while she is going to de-digivolve, the first part of the move is still going to go off, which is absolutely absurd. No other ultimate within the game will do this, but yeah, Renemon's crazy. Lastly, though I said I adored the crunchy PS1 audio quality earlier, and believe me, I really do, it does make the tamers sound really, really bad because of how compressed they specifically are, and it also makes it kind of hard to understand what some of the characters are saying when they call out their special moves. These don't soil the overall fun I had going back to Rumble Arena, and that last misgiving is only an issue due to the hardware limitations of the PS1, limitations that the sequel to Rumble Arena didn't have to deal with. Digimon Rumble Arena 2 released on October 5th, 2004, just over 2 years after the release of the original, meaning that it turns 20 this year! Time marches onward unstoppably, and I just don't like it. And then, you know, if you think about it, there's no way to stop it. We're all getting older.
Digimon Rumble Arena 2.
Oh, there's a new man. The title screen for this one is full of energy. The upbeat techno music, the logo bouncing about, the game's excited that you're playing it, and you should be excited too. This isn't quite the same vibe as the first one had. There we had this grand, whimsical tune and the vibrant colours of the backdrop, but the sheer energy exuded by this one is something to behold. Past the screen we're whooshed down an internet highway, similar to Digimon the movie, and this time around we've got a couple more bits to explore. A single player, multiplayer options, records, and Digidex? For what it is, it's very cool that it's here. Gives you all the names of the Digimon in the game, the names of their moves and how to do them, a couple of stats, and a brief little write about each of the characters. That's nice to have around. I also love how everyone has a quote, a favourite combo they can execute. What I don't love is the name of this feature. It invites the argument of, Digimon is just Pokemon for freaks and losers, and firstly, I'm not a freak or a loser, and second, it should have been called the Digimon Analyzer. Are they stupid? And so we've seen already that there's a bit of a vibe and aesthetic switch up here. So let's have a look at the single player and talk about what's new there. The most immediately noticeable change is the roster. There's fewer unlockable spaces and a much less balanced roster here. And from the first game we've lost Wormmon, Renamon, Terriermon and Impmon, with the missing Adventure Digimon, Tentomon, Palmon, Biomon and Gomamon being brought in alongside a Frontiers representative in Flamemon. While writing this video, I did find out that apparently Renamon and Terriermon were set to return alongside newcomers Hawkmon and Armadillomon from 02, but for some reason were cut during development. What this means though is that your starting roster is now incredibly adventure heavy. Don't get me wrong, Adventure, as I said, is my favourite anime of all time, and the most iconic next to Tamers when it comes to Digimon, so I can see why you'd pivot the roster in this way, you know, use the characters more people will know. Considering how nicely balanced the final roster of the first game was though, in it being a representation of the entirety of the anime, the lopsided nature of the starting roster here does leave a lot to be desired. And still, there's a few unlockable slots, so maybe it'll balance itself out by the end. After selecting your preferred digital friend, a supportive message from my partner might I add, you're off and away into your first battle, and this is where we really see how things differ from the first. Things start as early as the loading screen. Gone are these charming pre-fight opponent cards, and instead we get a still of each Digimon who's going to feature in the fight. And some of these look alright, but others look peculiar as hell, like Biomon, and Flamemon is just leering horribly because he's horrible.
Knockout battle. Survive until the end to win. Ready, rumble!
From the second the first 5 starts, you can feel just how different this game is compared to the first. It buys more so into the Smash vibe than last time. Your goal is simply to drain the opponent's health 3 times to get the win. This, because of how the first game felt, would have been a total slog to do, but there's also been significant tweaks to the characters and how they play this time. Digimon move quicker, attacks are snappier and cause their stun, alongside everyone now having 3 special attacks instead of 2, alongside aerials which are designed to inflict fall damage if you knock someone out of the air, and a put stomp to get you back to the ground quickly. You can grab and throw your opponent, trade Digivolution energy for health, and the stages are far more interactive. Take this first stage, Jungle Ruins, as an example. There's multiple ways for you to interact with the level which will impact the fight in various ways. Like if your opponent is favouring the trees, just smack them enough times and they'll break. If fancy a free Digivolution, just break the bridge with your Bum Bash and you'll get to Digivolve for free with this new Digi-Egg item. It's just the first stage as well. Every other one also has a unique gimmick to make the battle super hectic and pacey, even more so than the first game. Jungle Falls has bounce plants that launch you between 2 different heights on the stage. Steamworks has pipes which alternate between shooting steam and fire you can use in lots of different ways, either using it to push your opponent to their doom or burning them alive. The Cannery has conveyor belts, but these chutes you also fall into force you to fight as a tin can for a bit. Danger Gulch has a saloon you can get tossed into and out of, alongside instant kill minecarts filled with TNT which can give you the edge if you're down. Ice Palace has ice physics across the whole stage and a chandelier you can drop on opponents for big damage, and the entire stage of Pier 47 is constantly moving and transforming, making for some real scramble moments of you just trying to stay on screen. My favourite 2 by far though are Twisted Toy Town and Chaos Wasteland. The former is an auto-scroller chock full of fun references and weird gimmicks, and the latter is the equivalent of Final Destination, except each platform acts independently of the others. Sometimes they'll rise, sometimes they'll fall, sometimes they'll sink, sometimes you just get anti-gravity, and sometimes they turn into pillars of flame or ice. The stage is constantly changing and is so hectic, I absolutely love it. Going back to that Digivolution item I mentioned a little minute ago, the cards from Tamers are outright gone here, instead replaced by items you can grab to change up the battle. These items include Digi-Eggs to give you free Digivolution, health items to restore varying amounts of stamina, the self-explanatory invincibility and extra life, a Fire Up which gives your Digimon contact damage for a short time while setting them on fire, Iron Fist which gives your Digimon a slightly more metallic look and increases your knockback to insane amounts, Bomb Curse which spawns bombs behind you so you have to keep on the move to avoid getting exploded, Diginute which depletes everyone's Digivolution meter except the person who picked it up, and best of all, the Digivices. Digivices in this game act a little bit like assist trophies from Smash, but instead of summoning a character, they trigger a random effect. This can be changing up everyone's forms with Digivolve Everyone, De-Digivolve Everyone, or Digivolution Convolution, the latter of which changes everyone's forms up or down depending on where they're at. You can get Pinata Party, which turns a random Digimon into a Pinata who can only run around and ground pound, and if they get hit, they give out a ton of Digivolution energy. It could be Lightning Strikes, which just adds a whole other level of danger to any stage it's used on. Sympathy Pain swaps the health of the highest and lowest players. Or, my favourite, Summon Phantomon. In the anime, Phantomon was a Mook and a Myotis Monarch, but this game turns him into the Digimon equivalent of the Grim Reaper. Sorry, Reapermon. Phantomon will chase players around the stage, and if he catches you with his scythe, that's an instant kill, and he stays around for a canny long time. He plays no favourites, and usually this meant that any and all violent acts stopped between me and my friends for the sake of self-preservation, or trying to sacrifice one another to the Spectre for a quick lead. Alongside the stages, these extra effects just bring a whole other level of fun to these fights that the first game just simply didn't have. I keep saying words like zany and hectic when it comes to this game, but that's the best way to describe the fights in this one. They are a huge part of the fun for me. Having to constantly use the stages or items up, adapt to what an opponent's picked up while smacking around my friends was always a huge part of the game's appeal. It's just pure fun how zany, there it is again, things can get. Another way the game has changed is in the Digivolution system. You're still building up your meter by dealing and taking damage, but this time Digivolution happens in real time instead of stopping the fight, and There's more of them. Every character, except some unlockable ones we'll touch upon in a second, has 3 stages of Digivolution instead of 2, giving you an additional Digimon per Digimon to play as, each with their own unique attacks and stats. Adding in the Champion stage, or Armor in the cases of Vmon and Gatomon, is a great choice and gives the roster more variety in the Digimon you can play as than it seems at first glance. Every Digimon having 3 attacks also means that there's a greater variety there too, with some being physical, some reflectors, some command grabs, or some status givers. Some can be charged for more range or damage, and some can be angled to snipe opponents from afar. The 3rd stage Digimon this time will also have access to Ultra attacks. This is a special attack usable while guarding and pressing square. All of them need to be charged, and because of this, some of them are absolutely absurd, like you're telling me that War Greymon's Wimpy Claw Slam and Imperial Drumon's Supreme Positron Laser, a stage-wide projectile which gets stronger over time, are comparable as equal moves. The introduction of the 3-stage evolution maybe also explains why we don't have more 2 representation. Maybe they couldn't figure out to make Shakuramon fun, maybe Aquilamon and Halsamon were too similar to other Digimon to warrant inclusion. Wormmon doesn't have any canon armor forms, so I guess that makes sense for him. There were certainly options though. Give him Paildramon or Imperial Dramon Dragon Mode or something. You gave the DNA form to Vmon, you could have still made it work. I still have no idea why they cut Renamon and Terriermon though. Terriermon even had a model for the character select screen. Maybe the additional evolutions for everyone else saved up the development time? Who knows? What I do know for sure though is that 2 similar argument completely falls apart when you're greeted with one of the screens during your arcade mode run. See, after you beat the 1st stage, you have a choice of either going towards an easier or hard route, with the choices impacting the Digimon you'll face at the end. Sometimes though, instead of having the advertised fight, you'll be greeted by a challenge from Black Agumon, Black Gabumon, or Black Guilmon. Honestly, I would have rather had the O2 Digimon over these guys, and they just feel like excuses to feature their mega forms, but it is neat I suppose to hear Black Garurumon using Foxfire, the Japanese name for Howling Blaster. These aren't the only surprises you'll encounter though, and notice at the start of the first match the announcer explains the rules. That's because there's multiple game modes in this one too. From your standard time and stock battles, you've also got King of the Hill where you defend certain points on the stage, a Digi-Egg Hunt where you chase Calomon around to accumulate the most Digi-Eggs, Little vs Big where one Digimon starts as a Mega and the rest are capped as rookies, most kills winning, but if you manage to kill the Mega form, you take their place as the Mega. These extra modes do a really good job of spicing things up. Usually in platform fighters I just go for stock modes, but these add the kind of spice that keep things nice and hectic and do make arcade mode feel more fun since they can appear at any time. The ultimate goal of arcade mode is to reach one of these end bosses. As I said, you can choose to travel either easier or harder routes to influence which boss you get at the end, with the exception of the bottom and easiest route being your way to unlock Ice Palace. Amongst these 5 final foes you've got Neemon and Duskamon from Frontier, Malomyotasmon from Zero 2, and Diaboromon and Omnimon from our war game. It's nice to see things got mixed up after the first Rumble Arena only featuring Reapermon, and these guys do feel like big deals, with their comparatively larger stature and some absolutely insane moves, like Blaster Blade from Omnimon, which can be fired as many times as you need before it hits the ground, Diaboromon's moves all having gigantic range and size, Neemon having IBS, Duskamon having a laser gate and the ability to just swap places with his opponent at any time, and Malomyotasmon's ultimate scrambling your controls. When it comes to playing as them though, I'm not super fussed. They're just big, slow fellas and take away the fun of Digivolution, so I never reach out for them. And while I can't speak for Neemon and Duskamon, the adventure bosses just don't sound right.
Rumble!
Some dodgy sounding Digimon shouldn't deter you from giving this game a go though. In fact, I'd say fans of the series will find enjoyment across both of the Rumble Arena games for different reasons. As I've hopefully made very clear, the first Rumble Arena game just has this energy about it that just feels like Digimon. From the visuals, to the audio, to the mechanics, to the roster, it does a really good job of representing those early years of the series. If we're talking gameplay though, the second Rumble Arena blows the first out of the water. What it sacrifices in vibe and aesthetic, it trades in for just being a flat-out better game, leaning more into the genre of being a platform fight that just so happens to feature Digimon, rather than be a game that wants to lend mechanics and really represent Digimon as a series. It's far more zany and frantic, and between the expanded Digivolution trees, each level having its own fun gimmick to keep things hectic, the more varied modes, and the Digivices, it's just simply the more fun of the two games. The first game, while still being worth a look, is something I'd only strongly recommend to fans of Digimon, whereas the second, I think, is something that loads of people could get a kick out of. On that note, the sign-ups for my brand new tournament series, Titan View Tussle, are now live. We really want to make sure we hit our cap of 4 players this time, so make sure you sign up now so we can make this one the biggest yet.